We know you love the Madagascar movie franchise, but there was one animal species in it that really stole everyone's heart. So much so, in fact, that they even got their own spinoffs.
Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Yep, you guessed it. The Penguins of Madagascar. But are these penguins real? And if so, how do they survive the scorching desert of the island? Today, we'll be talking about these adorable creatures, how on earth they got there, and how they survived. So stay tuned as we dive into the mysterious lives of these penguins that everyone adores. If you've seen the penguins in the series of the animated films, you may have wondered if there are actually any penguins in Madagascar. The question is so popular because of the animated film Penguins of Madagascar, which may lead you to think that penguins do live in this fabulous island. But coming to reality, there are no real penguins in Madagascar. Just the animated bad boys who we love so much. In fact, there have never been any penguins at all in the Madagascar region. This is because the environment is so unsuitable for these fish-like birds. On islands like Madagascar, so many factors would work against the penguin's survival, making it impossible for penguins to survive. But this doesn't mean that penguins can't work their way into the warmer climates of Africa. Even though penguins can be found in Africa and the Galapagos Islands, getting to Madagascar is not only tricky, but also impossible. Penguins just can't swim to Madagascar because of bad weather and long stretches of warm water. The only penguins you'll see in Madagascar are in the zoos. There are no naturally occurring penguins in that country. What a bummer, right? But let's talk about why this is the case. First of all, the obvious, the bad weather. It's almost common knowledge that penguins need extreme cold to survive because of the fur and blubber. This makes penguins ideal for cooler temperatures. In the Madagascars is immensely hot and humid weather. Penguins will simply not be able to survive in the wild. Any penguins found in Madagascar zoos must be kept in special built enclosures with temperatures appropriate for these little guys. Another reason is that the birds would have predators there. There are multiple predators in Madagascar that can wipe out any penguin community if they ever could live there. Predators like dogs, cats, and native fossa can hunt and kill any penguins that might be present on the island. Then there's a matter of distance from nearby landmass. Madagascar is situated far from any major area of land, making it inaccessible to penguins who can only swim to other places for food and nesting. Penguins find it hard to swim such long distances, which is again why there are no penguins down there. Well, unless the part in the movies where their highly intelligent species are unable to engineer aerospace travel, of course, but not much research is done in that department yet. But seriously, we can't just ignore global warming. Penguins have evolved to live and flourish in cold environments, and they lack the physical characteristics necessary to survive in tropical temperatures. Because of the increasing rate of global warming, places like Madagascar no longer have the environmental conditions for penguins to survive. Simply put, Madagascar and its surrounding area are too hot and humid to support penguins. So, if that's what you were basing your trip to the island in hoping to spot a few mischievous penguins, we suggest you think again. But just because there aren't any in Madagascar today doesn't mean that there haven't ever been any in warm places. In fact, penguins have actually colonized Africa 3 times. The history of African penguins is one of false starts. The first penguin settlers in Africa millions of years ago became extinct. These little tough guys, however, did not give up. They decided to return, carried there by ocean currents, to repopulate the African coasts. Africa has long been the southern hemisphere penguin-free continent. The first penguins arrived in Africa 30 million years after spreading to Australia, Antarctica, and South America. In Africa today, only the black-footed penguins survived. However, African penguin diversity was not always so low. Over the last few decades, paleontologists have discovered that the fossilized evidence of 4 more penguin species. But sadly, all of these ancient penguins are now extinct. The presence of both ancient and modern penguins in Africa could be explained by 1 or 2 factors. Either different penguin species traveled to Africa at different times, or they all descended from a single group of penguins who turned up in Africa a long time ago. This last sort of solution is referred to by biologists as endemic or adaptive radiation. When a single species colonizes an island or continent, radiation are common. These species, offsprings, adapt to different niches and diverge into new bloodlines. Darwin finches, which colonized the Galapagos Islands and involved beaks of various shapes, and Madagascar lemurs, which developed over time into creatures the size of mice and gorillas, are both examples of adaptive radiation. The shape of a penguin family tree gets to decide which explanations is pretty close to actual penguin history. For example, if all African penguins are more closely related to one another than to other penguins, this would suggest endemic radiation. On the other hand, African penguins' closest relatives all live outside of Africa. It is more probable that they settled in Africa multiple times. But how did they end up there? It was pointed out that 2 ocean currents in South Atlantic could have carried penguins from South America to the African coast. The currents are best described as a penguin conveyor belt. Can you imagine? Pretty neat, right? Ocean currents also explain why penguins couldn't spread further north and never made it to Madagascar. There are exceptions, of course. Ocean currents, both east and west, have limited penguin expansions. Despite today's low sea levels, the black-footed penguin has really made itself a home in Africa. Even so, the future does not look promising for this latest arrival. Commercial fishers and fur seals compete for food with the black-footed penguin. The lovable flippered bird is now classified as an endangered species. If history has taught us anything, it is that African penguins have historically been vulnerable to disturbances. This lone survivor should be cherished. But now, coming back to the famous movies, what about the penguins in them? What species were they? Good question. Well, if you just look at the appearance of the cute birdies in the movies, they look like generic penguins. But this is actually debatable. Based on the appearance, they're about as generic as a penguin can get, which unfortunately means they're not based on a single species. Their body plane and coloring are almost similar to the king penguins, but king penguins are the second largest penguins on the planet. But if there's one thing we do know about our rookie of 4, is that they're small. So we'll have to make a decision based on behavior. Here are some fun facts about our penguins. First up, they prefer warmer temperatures than most penguins. The first film indicates that in the fall, because of the leaves are orange and the children are in school, we can, however, be more specific. Marty is skating on a Rockefeller ice rink in the scene where he's walking around New York. The ice rink is only open from November 21st to January 17th, because the weather is cold enough to keep the outdoor ice rink frozen during that time. Assuming the earliest possible date, November 21st, is Marty's birthday and the day the animals break away. Given some leeway in travel time, the penguin should arrive in Antarctica between late November and early January, aka the middle of summer in Antarctica. This should be the warmest time in the year for a penguin to be most comfortable. However, after a brief pause, they declare,
"Well, this sucks,"
and set sail for Madagascar.
"This is more like it."
This is a consistent trait in almost all the media we see penguins in. They don't like the cold. But some believe that Skipper, Kowalski, Rico, and Private belong to the LD species of penguins. Now, the penguins are shown walking in Antarctica in the movies. They were near the ocean because a ship was parked nearby. This is also true in real life, as Adele penguins tend to congregate near the coast. Although Kowalski, Skipper, Rico, and Private are shown to be able to live different environments, such as the city and the desert, real-life Aldi penguins can only coexist in cold environments and cannot live in the cities or hot environments such as a desert. So, although you might not see any penguins roaming around the island, you can take comfort in the fact they got pretty close in the past. We should start taking the climate change more seriously to protect these adorable creatures from being more endangered. That's really the point in all these movies.